Welcome to the Mega Podcast, where we delve into the inspiring stories of entrepreneurs, motivational coaches, and business leaders. Join us as we hear about their journey to success and the challenges they faced along the way. We'll uncover their secrets to perseverance and determination and gain valuable insights into what it takes to reach your goals. Their journey may not be beautiful, but it is always purposeful. So sit back, relax, and be ready to be inspired by those who have dared to dream big and make it a reality. Hey, everybody, what's going on? It's your boy Al Mega. Thank you for coming and listening to another Al Mega podcast. And today we have an amazing guest. This person is an award-winning media advisor. He's the editor-in-chief of I Have a Podcast. So do I. Oh my God. Can't wait to learn more about what he's doing here, though. I mean, he's had a crazy journey, MTV, everything. He's worked with top stars and top businesses, paving the way, but teaching others how to make it big too, using their brand. All right. So let's learn about this from the one, the only Vinnie Potestivo. Wepa, how you doing?
Yo, hola gente, mi amo Vicente. First off, you're the A.M.P. Are you kidding me that those three letters A.M.P. lined up so perfectly for you?
Right, you know.
I mean, I can respect that. I call my company Vinnie Potestivo Entertainment. My website's vpe.tv, but I also have the verified podcast exchange. Like I try to play in my alphabet, you know, because because why not? A creative challenge. But the A.M.P.
Yeah,
man,
man, right?
killer name.
I love it. Yeah, one day I just put it together and I was just looking at it. I said, "Wait a minute,
this gift."
Yeah, this
and how many people now understand what an A.M.P. actually is? That like audio has had a moment that like. Yeah, video, you know, television, video is always, you know, movies, silver screen, the small screen, everything except for the iPhone, right? It's always been wonderful, but
absolutely,
audio is having a moment.
But talking about wonderful and having moments and being someone that's actually been on a wonderful journey, helping others, you know, level up, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, you've been a little bit about yourself, right? Where you from, OG, and early inspirations that led you on this path?
Oh yeah, right. I'm born and raised in Staten Island, so I've been in New York my
Hey,
whole
New
life.
York, yeah, I'm Brooklyn,
I'm in Brooklyn
originally.
now. I'm in I'm like in North Williamsburg, kind of Greenpoint area is where I'm at now.
Okay.
So it's just close enough to be trendy, but still quiet. And I got dogs and you know a little quiet.
Hey, I was on Morgan Avenue. That's where I grew up.
I know that well. All right. We'll connect and have to talk about restaurants. Well, you know, pandemic changed everything in the world, let alone in New York. But it gave everyone the opportunity to rebrand, regardless of how great you were doing or how bad you were doing, whether it was your time to start over or it was every single person had the opportunity to take a step back to refresh. And like I think there's part of me that's like a vibrant New Yorker that comes into play. I love talking about, you know, being from New York. I knew I would work in Times Square. That was always like the place where I wanted to work. It's so weird to say that, but like from Staten Island, that was my dream. Like I want to work.
Everybody want to work in the city. Everybody, the city.
Yeah, right. You want to go to we take the ferry into the city. At first, by the way, I was a computer programmer, so I went to school. I actually went to Wagner College. I went to school. I went in as a psychology major with a scholarship in music. Which I point out only because it was in fifth grade that I was told that I had no musical talent and that I couldn't join the band and I wasn't allowed to be in band with all my friends because I had no musical talent. So that's, by the way, a seed. I point this out because that's like the first seed in my life where someone tells me I can't do something. And I later realized as a child, and as a 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old, that I'm capable of doing more than what people believe that, you know, I could. And I didn't necessarily have to have a goal to have a vision. Like I wanted to be in Times Square. I knew that, you know.
Yeah.
MTV was not in Times Square when I had these like big dreams of going to, you know, I don't even know it was in Times Square. You know what was in Times Square? Like watch Pretty Woman. Growing up in New York in the 80s, you know, that's what was in Times Square. So I don't know. It was just something magnetic, and to be surrounded by talent and the fervor and energy of New York City is something like I've always lived off of and like I've created off of and bounced energy off of, and I find it very vibrant and energizing to be here. I also love being from New York because back when it was hard to travel, New York, I mean, like, I go to Times Square, I can meet hundreds of people from hundreds of, if not thousands of different places, in a lifetime. And long story short, I bring up Times Square a lot because I went to this one casting on 45th and Broadway. It was actually MTV had this a spanking new music week. MTV just got into Times Square. It was the whole new, Y2K. Times Square is taken over by
Okay.
Disney and MTV. It was all cool and trendy to be there. Whitney Houston was dropping a single, and I was picked out of the audience to ask her a question. And my question to Whitney, which I practiced, Ananda Lewis helped me, by the way. So if you're watching Teen Summit back in the 90s or MTV in the early 2000s, you'll know exactly who tapped me on the shoulder. She's the one who got me in to MTV. My question was, Whitney, what was it like recording with Mariah Carey on the Prince of Egypt soundtrack?
Oh
And
man,
I
started some
practiced so
beef.
hard. Yeah, right. I just told you about the time of year, time of life when.
Yeah.
And long story short, I spend an hour practicing. They show me to the director up in the booth, whatever. When Whitney comes out, and the stage manager says he's going to ask the question. This is the question he's going to ask. And she goes, I'm not answering that question. Give me a different question. I was like, no. Back then, they didn't have me work on two different questions. I was a one question asker.
Yeah.
Um,
Funny.
I had 2 weeks prior to that decided, like, I'm a data guy. Like I was saying, like, like we want to work in the city. I wanted to work at like some type of financial institution that maybe produced theater like that. In my mind,
Yeah.
that's kind of like where I was going. And I was good with Microsoft Excel and back then Microsoft Access, which we use for databases. And I took out an ad on Backstage while I was at Wagner College.
Backstage. Wow.
And Backstage is a small magazine for people, non-union actors and models and people looking to get TV opportunities. Back in the 90s, now it's backstage.com. And I urge y'all to go there because there's awesome opportunities. I still do casting to this day because I can't stop. I love casting. I love
Oh, word? Okay.
OG finding people. Sign me up. But if I have to go back and cast a famous person already, I've already done that. I've done some work at MTV. Like we gave Beyonce her first role in that, like a first featured role ever in a
Oh,
movie.
word? That was young.
Carmen, a hip opera. You know what I mean? Like that's
Hip hop, going back.
yeah,
way
going
more.
back. Like
Okay,
that's
then.
like
Okay.
are you kidding me? What do you do after? And Mandy Moore was introduced to me when she was 15. She was just starting to be a VJ, a video
Whoa.
jockey, a host on MTV.
Okay.
Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, those teens were coming out, so MTV wanted someone that the audience can grow with. And like I got to work with Diddy on Making the Band and Nick Cannon on Wildin' Out and
How'd you
Sharon
feel
Osbourne on the
being around all
Osbourne.
this in this journey of yours? I mean, was this something you even expected?
No, I didn't.
Or
I just told you
like,
my dream. My dream was kind of Times Square. I had like an
well,
ad.
I mean, again, that's it. It's from that dream you get all this. I mean,
Listen,
to be in it. What was that moment? What was the moment like to be in it?
oh, you
Were
know
you ever
what?
in
The
that
moment for
moment?
me, I know
Yeah,
when it was. There right after I asked that question, they said,
yeah.
"Thank you very much. Thank you." And I turned around and I said, "Look, I have this database of people. If you ever need more of us, let me know. I'd love to be here." And she said, "Well,
Okay.
we just found out we're shooting a very Busta Christmas special tomorrow night with Busta Rhymes. We
No.
need 30 people to come in the studio to sit around him while he reads nursery rhymes, like in, he does the Busta version of like Christmas rhymes or whatever." I was like, that's hysterical. Are you kidding me? Like and I can get all of my friends on TV and then they can have images of them on television that they can cut into the reel. Like
Oh
how else were
yeah.
we going to get reels? Maybe some people had camcorders back then in the day, but there was a very different quality of commercialized camera that was out for us to use versus like what you saw on television. Now you might not know the difference. Actually, now you might watch a whole movie on TV and then it's like shot entirely on iPhone. You're like,
Yeah,
what?
I
Like,
feel you, man. I just dropped off of my studio the old school VHS
that's it.
camcorders. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well,
I still have one working at that.
that's keep my technical skills go back. I mean, it was why I could wire two VCRs together to edit, like create my own
uh,
little editing station. And when I told my soon to be boss at MTV back in the day that I had, that skill, he was like, I didn't get hired because of casting. My casting abilities didn't get me my job at MTV. I didn't know anybody, by the way. I was paid to meet people and respectfully and to collaborate with them and to be open to opportunities um and those were things I did as a freelancer. In 99, MTV decided they were going to create a talent development department and really hone in on building network-wide talent and figure out how to create more shows using more of the talent that we already had access to. So like if you look at Jackass, how Jackass came in as a show, and then
yeah.
Chris Pontius and Steve-O and everyone kind
Everybody
of got a
started branding off.
spin-off. And
They did
um
the Wu Tang.
yeah, I'm from Staten Island. You
There you
understand,
go.
like
Yeah,
the
that's the
input
plan.
dictates the output, by the way. Like I know this
Yeah, right.
by
That's
just
the
sheer
Voltron,
exposure.
the Voltron method. I want to call it. You know what I mean?
That's
Everybody, you know,
hysterical.
y'all split up, but then when together, y'all won. But split up, y'all forces on your own.
It's why? Because it takes an audience and it turns it into a community. Usually you need two audiences or more to build community. So an audience to me is someone who arrives for a leader, a performer, a speaker, someone who's gaining visibility, and is an audience member is there for a sole purpose. A community is there for the congregation, for the community, for the action, for the energy, not just solely for the sole purpose. So when Beyonce, for example, who does not need to be doing, Coachella and other music festivals by any stretch of the imagination for exposure,
Hmm.
when she does those types of events, Lady Gaga, even when they do these types of events, and they bring their massive audience into a massive cultural connection where there's so much more community to happen, that's where real growth on that level happens. Because now you have people who are not just experiencing and are not, that you're just not visible, but you've created an experience. That experience is shareable, and it's shareable by way of content and social media and podcasts and all the other ways that we know how to share experiences like that. And it's in that shareability that leads to discovery, right? If I just increased your visibility, if you think just increasing visibility gets you more discovered, what that actually gets you is like, oh man, that guy, oh, that song again, like that show again, like it almost has no value to its existence for you to share it. So you can either consume it and accept it and have a quiet relationship with it, or find that it's valuable for somebody else. And there's this pack mentality that is built into us to want to prove to our friends, our family, the people we worship with, the people we go to school with, the people we work with, to add value to their lives. It's even in recommending a new song, recommending a new TV show, right? It's not in us watching it that makes that show successful. It's in us talking about it. Think about
Yeah,
all the show. How many times everyone at the Thanksgiving table asked me if I was watching Yellowstone, because apparently last November of 2022 that apparently everyone in the world was watching Yellowstone. So I felt pressured into watching this piece of content that everyone had some type of cultural reference to.
I have not fallen to the pressure, my friend.
No,
Not
don't
yet.
do it. Yeah, they got me on Paramount and Peacock and all the different pluses, all those. So many more. By the way, there's so many more networks than there are podcasts. And people say, like, are you afraid of being a podcaster? Like, the space is getting so big. Like, are you afraid you're going to get lost? I'm like, what? Like, well,
Uh,
who's telling you this stuff? Where are you feet?
yeah,
No. In fact, I am part of the alchemy of the growth of podcasting. Like, Al, this collaboration here is what's making the podcast space just one episode bigger, one episode richer. And then we'll talk about collaborating
absolutely.
afterwards and taking world domination. But it's us who have the freedom, the rights. Like you own this space. In TV, it doesn't work that way. A lot of those names I mentioned at the top of this do not
Yep,
own the content that you know them for. It's a different world, and we're ahead right now. Podcasters, business owners who are investing in creating content that they own, we're ahead because we understand how certain shows like Friends or Seinfeld, we understand how different networks bundle content and we see them moving around. Now we can start to spot and understand how TV's been leveraging owning content for years. And what we're going to be able to do, especially in the Web3 section, I'm not talking about, Web3 in the form of like blockchain
Hmm.
and crypto, but more so in the community, section where
Oh yes.
where I come from, the real people economy. We're currently in the creator economy now. Like I think that future economy is the community economy. And
Oh
that's
yes.
a strong economy.
It's
There's
a
power in
different
numbers in that.
experience that's coming, and that
Yeah.
absolutely, 'cause you're going to be able to give them a constant experience at home through an avatar. I mean, how nuts is that?
Yeah.
Well, I love technology too. I love even the AI stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, so let me ask you then. So, how can a brand leverage? I mean, what can they do when you speak of putting themselves out there? What
Yeah.
is just some basic and small things that a brand can do to build that awareness
Oh,
of
cool. All
themselves?
right. So let's say the first thing is you have no time, no money, no resources, no anything other than your own expertise. How do you make noise with that? I gotta be honest. Podcast guesting. It is
Yes.
my face lights up. I feel horrible. I've been so I've been doing this, like what we're doing here, for 25 years. This is
25
how I
years,
cast the
bro.
Housewives of New Jersey and
Well,
Millionaire and Matchmaker, and like through virtual this. And then I cut my voice
yes.
out, all the hours of production. All I have to do now as a guest is show up with value. I mean, I do work. I sit down and I come up with thoughts and ideas that I stick to, that I prove. I realize that my facts don't change, that the characters don't change, but the story changes depending on who the audience is, who the host is. That actually, as a guest, as made me feel even more valuable to be a better host. Like learning how to be a guest on podcast made me feel more valuable as a host. And the thing that podcasters can do now, I mean, nobody owns the podcasting industry. There's like 5 people who own TV when you look at like the publicly
Yeah.
traded sectors. So I show up to this podcast with a very different emotional connection to this piece of content than I would if I was going to a network that no one in that room that I'm working with has final authority on what happens with that footage after it's been recorded. And that's terrifying to me. I've seen people's whole careers go. I've seen Ashley Simpson lose her entire show and millions of dollars because she missed the cue of a song on live TV. I mean, I've seen, and
Yeah.
I'm not solely coming from a place of fear, but I'm coming from a place of strength
Yeah.
that my successes shouldn't be because nothing bad happened. But I can be successful because of my surroundings, not in spite of them. That's the power we have here. I also believe that as an independent creator and as a business owner, as a small business owner, and I identify more as a small business owner than an entrepreneur, but I would put entrepreneurs in this bucket too. That being able to own something like a podcast, I can't. I don't. There's nothing I've been able to create more success from than podcasts. From
Wow.
2006, when I first took my first podcast to broadcast show, that was shout out to Fat Man Scoop and Shonda Freeman.
Hey, Fat Man
Yeah.
Scoop, the
Yeah, right. You
Fat
got a
Man
fifty
Scoop.
dollar
I didn't
bill,
know
put your
him.
hands up. You got it. He and
Hey.
they had this really cool, back then in 2006, podcasting, the barrier to podcasting was equipment. So if you were a DJ and you were in the studio and you were in a radio and you had access to something, then more likely than not, a lot of celebrities leaned in, and specifically a lot of music supervisors and music executives leaned into podcasting. We had the access, we had the access to the mic. I'll never forget. He played it for me. They went to the studio and recorded it, and I was like, yeah, but this is your wife, and it sounds like you're like in a audio booth talking about sex. I'm like, I don't mean to sound creepy, but that sounds creepier than what I'm about to pitch you, which is like you should take the microphone to your bedroom and record it in your bedroom and like let's just like let me hear you moving around. I don't want to hear it. Like, don't do anything weird, I'm not like this is not consent to do what you want, but like but I don't know. I just felt like there could be more grit to the conversation. Take me into that man and wife space
Yeah.
because MTV, when I was watching it in the 90s, it was Dr. Drew Pinsky and Adam Carolla, like two guys that
The
did
man
not have
show.
sex the way that I do. So and joked about a lot of the other ways people, so it was like a very different, time. I also thought a killer opportunity for a married couple to talk about, that it was either Dr. Drew or Dr. Ruth,
Oh
or
yeah,
and then Adam
Dr.
Carolla
Ruth.
was like that he'll mansplain it for you, whatever,
That's the last person you want to hear anyone talk about
Yeah,
sex. Is
right. That's
Dr.
why I was
Ruth.
like
I
scoop
mean,
it, and they didn't pretend to be perfect, but they were married and they had figured it out for them, like I had a lot of respect for that. That was cool. So, but I've had more success converting, and now, even now, I have podcasts that have deals at Netflix as unscripted or HBO Max as scripted. So we've been able to help lawyers with exclusivity and caseloads, and other
oh,
creators
word. Oh,
types,
big.
really leverage what they have access to, and all of that to be said through podcasting. It's easier to get a podcast into a book, in my opinion, for me personally, with the way I create for some reason, than it is to make a book into a podcast or a book into a film. It's easier for me to do podcast to film than it is to do TV show to film. I don't even know.
I guess it's based
So
on the lane that you've coming through. You know what I mean?
I
So
know. Also, that's a really awesome perspective. Yeah, I think that lane that I've been on, a lot of those other people that were at MTV in the late '90s, early 2000s, they are also the people at these platforms that I'm talking about. And you know, when you speak the buyer's language,
yeah,
it's the seller's option. So I think that's a good point you bring out there.
yeah, man. I'm saying. So all right. So what have you learned from your mistakes or your failures on this journey
Oh,
thus far?
oh, that everything happens for a reason. One of my biggest mistakes and one of my biggest failures, I would say, it's not really a failure, but I see it as a failure. I did a 10 episode series, a 10 episode season 1 series called Me and Mr. Jones with Nas and Khalees, like the first year that they married. So basically what we did with Nick Lachey and Jessica Simpson, I just did with Nas and Khalees, and it was the first time Nas had ever executive produced a project, which I thought a TV project like that
That's
that
you.
was
Yeah.
such a big order. Like I was, you know, you get to work with a lot of people, but you don't get to work with them first
Yeah.
very
Oh, I get
often.
that.
And
You don't get to pop
actually,
that cherry. I feel you.
that's the you never forget your first. That's so funny that I'm saying this. By the way, because the person who taught me that was Funkmaster Flex.
Dude,
Oh my God, I'm like,
it's the truth.
I'm trained by like legendary
No,
creators that just
when people tell me, "Oh, you're my first podcast," I embarrass them by saying, "So I popped your podcast cherry, huh?" They're like, "Oh my god, yeah." It's like, "All right, there you go. You're gonna." He's like, "Yeah, we'll definitely remember you."
Yeah, right. It's true though. Flex came into my office one day and was like, he's like, "You don't have any." I had no awards. Like I'm in my home office now, so
Okay.
my boyfriend didn't let me have awards, but I have uplighting,
How
and I
dare
won.
he?
I
Not
won that.
you
I
gotta let
won that
gotta
fight.
let you show us some stuff. Come
But
on, man.
but yeah, so I have some cool plaques I'd love to put up. But he was like, you'll never forget your first plaque. He's like, I have to make sure that I cut, and it was like either going to be him or Tyrese were going to be my first plaque. And he was like, I have to make sure I'm your first plaque because you'll never ever forget it. And every moment of that conversation, when people go, well, what makes you different as a casting director? What makes you different as a brand creator? What makes you different as a storyteller? I'm like, I just did it first, and I did it well. And I did it well because I was really positioned with tremendous support from a network and from a creative community that wanted to comply and work with MTV up until like 2007 when things got fugazi and they got out because like YouTube and everything, iPhone and
Yeah.
all that other stuff happened around
The
MTV that they
world
didn't want to
changed.
play. Yeah, they didn't want to
MTV
pay attention
changed.
to.
Yeah.
It's driving me
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh
And
man, I hear you. I hear
and
you.
and
Just
that's
like
when the power
blockbusters.
shifted. That's when the power shifted to us. And that's important.
Isn't that amazing? That power shift, though. Like,
Yeah.
would
So,
it something? Would you have predicted this then that this would have happened?
oh no. Well, yeah. So,
Then we get too real, bro.
like, the truth of I'm pretty. You know what? Why? I think that I might not land if I start thinking about the future or trends in the future. I might not land on the actual line item, but I get really close to the where the market splits. Like for example, high definition or Blu-ray. Like
Uh,
there was a split that happened. By the way, I don't. Apparently, one of the big box companies back then made a decision they were going to carry this format and not the other one, and that's what wiped out the other
yeah,
format. And then Netflix needed to comply because there was a whole
yeah.
mail order. So it's a really interesting, but that's what I love about, I bring up 95 to 99. This is like in Staten Island where I'm learning how to move media around. The biggest fail was
Yes.
Nas, but that came as with a shift of power. MTV's heads changed and the head of programming changed. And oftentimes when that happens, there has to be a programmatic change. And what stung is that it was replaced with a show that I cast. So I was not happy
Oh,
about that either.
oh, that's
And
crazy.
a really successful one, by the way, called The Hills, which has gone
Oh,
still, it still
word.
goes on and on. But I don't, but shout out to
Wow.
Nick Cannon and DJ D-Rec for holding down the fort on Wild and Out, because that show was, if you, I mean, I'll have to come back and talk about what I learned from Nick Cannon, man. Oh, man.
Oh,
How
please, yeah.
MTV told him
Much
no, and this.
respect to him. Yeah, for
Oh, it's
sure.
it,
On the business side, for
that's
sure.
it. You know what? It's funny. People are like, they joke around about the kid count and stuff like that. I know that guy. I mean, that man doesn't do anything that's not intentional. So, like, be very clear about that. Like, he is very aware of the surroundings, how to offer himself up, how to create a room
Yeah.
that, like,
Yes.
I've seen that at work.
I give him massive credit for sure, man. He has good energy. He put out a good vibe, and he a real dude. I see it. I see
And
it.
he did it since he was a kid, by the way, and he
Yeah.
hasn't had a break. Like when MTV started working with him, it was really, to be honest, I think there was talk about him kind of replacing Carson Daly on TRL. Like I think that might have
Mm,
been one of the plans. And Nick was like, "I'm not doing a daily show. I just want to do Wild and Out." And they said no. They
yeah.
passed on the show. And I remember it was during Christmas break. He was still dating Christina Milian back in the day. And Christina and Nick went to a comedy club and they shot the tape. Christina was the other celebrity on the other side so that the people in the room watching it at MTV could see what a celebrity and Nick Cannon head to head would look like. Of course, they had just done, their blockbuster duo together, and they were kind of, one of the sweethearts of that young crowd of TRL.
Yep.
So it really helped people understand that. And then Cat Williams came on board with the cast, and then Nick called in some big asks to make sure that the right people, the right talent were attached to it. That's one lesson I learned quickly on that show.
Mm,
Even if you pitch, a kid talent show to TLC, Toddlers and Tiaras, all these other versions of these, if those kids don't actually truly have remarkable talent, the show won't land. So it was more than just the concept. It was the cast that really pushed it through. I didn't even think about this. And that's exactly what it's exactly what Ashton Kutcher did with us with Punked. He brought in Dax Shepard. I don't remember. People kind of
yeah.
forget
Yeah.
that Dax was one of the original. It was Dax and a
Yeah.
guy named Al, who were the two sort of improv actors on that show. But
Yeah.
Dax and Ashton were very afraid of being perceived as being like an MTV host. So Ashton had to figure out how to address the camera without holding a microphone, which is where he created that look in the black room with the, just kind of talking with the hat on, all
Yeah.
that
Little with
that
the
look.
producer look.
That produced, because you know why? He wanted, the whole reason he did Punked is so he could show the world that he could produce. There's the whole reason he did that show was so he could show them not only is he capable of being in hit series, but he can make them. That's the first
Well,
hit he made that he owned, and that launched his company, that launched his.
is that still a good tactic today to still come off like that? Like, yeah, I'm the business immediately. Do you think it still works today, or has the world changed that much that it wouldn't
Um,
work?
he would do it. I know he would do it differently now with ownership first and foremost.
Okay.
Also, it's like it's like believing in yourself. It's like it's not. It's knowing. It's It's hard. It's hard as a creator to answer that question. I kind of went into creator mode on that question. It's hard sometimes for us to see what our value is today based
Yes.
on our skill set today, knowing the impact we can make tomorrow. Like that's hard to that's a hard thing to like map out and understand what is appropriate. I'm thinking right now who wrote the jingle for ba-da-ba-ba-ba, who wrote that, and I think that he just did Arby's. If I'm right, I think he just did like Arby's commercial, and like the difference on the payout. Yeah, it was Pusha T. Pusha T was a buyout for McDonald's. The ba da ba ba ba, and then they already had Justin on the track, so I think he got whatever it's reported. I don't know, $20,000, $30,000 flat buyout.
Flat. All right.
And then versus what, and imagine if he was getting a piece of that every time we heard ba 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 ba. Are you kidding me? That'd be the sweetest sound of money ever. But I know
Every
that
time.
he changed his deal. It was a bit. I remember reading it maybe like a month or two ago about his Arby's deal, and the power in knowing yourself, your value, your worth.
Isn't that funny? Pusha T, hip hop artist doing
Yeah,
fast food jingles.
but that's right. And then like, and there's some really cool press out there about it. Like I've read up on it because I thought I love talent deals. I love watching talent evolve. This conversation that the creative community is having, that Kesha is having, that Taylor Swift is having, that artists are having about those contracts. I mean, I've seen those contracts. Not those contracts aren't going to fly in the creator economy anymore. Those contracts are going to look very different by the time we're done with them. The power has shifted. It's no longer through the ad gates of television or radio anymore that we have the power. And right now we're still pretty heavily reliant on shared space, whether it's radio, digital radio, or even social audio. So I think in terms of audio distribution, podcasting out is the most neutral piece of content in the audio sphere that isn't owned by someone. No one owns the podcasting space. We own our content, and it's the RSS, a really simple syndication RSS
Right.
link that says ping is something new, deliver it. Like that's powerful. And we have the ability now to create content and own it and get it out there. And if that content is shareable, it will lead to visibility. If you're taking your podcast episodes and turning them into blogs, it's going to lead to more SEO reach. Unfortunately, Google just announced that podcasts will no longer be included in Google search results. So in December of 2022, they
Really?
removed the little play button that it used to be like some of our content would pop up in search results and you could push play. They removed that last year. And at the top of this year, they announced that they're getting rid of podcasts from the search results, which means that if you want to search podcast information, you go to Google Podcasts and search there on that platform. So for us, creating a blog about our podcast is one of the best ways to make sure that we are represented,
Well, that's the
online.
first thing I did. Have a website.
That's
I've
it.
always thought website. Make sure I get all the social media branded. Then
So it
somebody
all comes
nudge me
back
on the
to you, right?
podcast and get it done. Yeah. So everything,
That's it.
absolutely.
That's it. Because what happens is people push the story more than pushing the source. And when you take a moment to step back and say, no, I am the AMP. Like this is like, I am the source of these episodes. There's real power in that, by the way. So I just figured this out. If you take your blog RSS link, head over to publishercenter.google.com and set up your blog RSS to be approved by Google so that other websites can find your blog RSS and then pull your content. I'd be happy, by the way, to show you how to do that afterwards. And I actually pull podcast content to my website. I have a podcast.com and I have a podcast.com, by the way. So I created a website because I have like my friends from MTV on my website, on my podcast. I don't have new friends made in like the last 10, 15 years. So for all of us, like I created a website so I can write articles about you, because I know that most of us podcasters put our podcast name first. Maybe if we get an article, usually our podcast name is in it, or it's a listicle and we're one of 5 or something like that. So I created this website for 2 reasons. One, so that I could help you and us get more press that's out there.
You mean this site?
Oh, you're you're awesome. Yeah, exactly. This one, well, this one, yeah, this is my home base. If you go to ihaveapodcast.com,
All right,
which
we're
is
gonna go there.
the site that I'm referring to right here. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
We're
This is
going.
the
We're
space
going.
that I created for us, and I built it with my little database background in mind. So like now I have, a couple of thousand podcasters that I've been able to meet, that I've been able to amplify, whose
Hey, look who
brands.
that
Now
is!
look at
Woo.
us. Look, I just dropped ClickFunnels free trial. I just dropped in some ads. I'm making like $4 a day on Google Ads now,
Hey
just
man,
to
$4
just
a
to
day is
prove the
$4 a
space.
day.
Yeah, just to prove the space. It's compounded. I hit you with a little pop up on the newsletter. Y'all don't be afraid to put an ask out there. Do not be afraid to say, sign my newsletter. What I am putting out is worthy
I
content. Yeah.
only clicked it off now because it's the live show. So I'll do it later.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, make yourself comfortable, by the way, here. And while you're here, I'll just, this is something I normally would
Oh,
let's
nice.
see, we're 35 minutes into this chat, so I don't mind dropping this interview. Oh yeah, that's super super cool. There's Damian Fahey, by the way. That dude is he's the co-EP of Family Guy right now. He used to host TRL.
Oh, well,
I
okay.
found him in like a radio basement doing like host auditions one day. The kid changed my life. Mandy Moore, I see here on the stage.
Legend. You
We
got
talked
Ja Rule.
Ja Rule. Ja Rule and we talked about the power of collaboration. I was
And so talk
curious.
about that. Yeah, I know. I love that because I believe in that as well. Because I always tell people let's work together. Together, it takes a village. They use that term to raise a child, but I think that also applies to building a business. It takes a village.
Yeah, it certainly does. Yeah, in TV we have something called the video village. Like there'd be like, if there's 5 or 6 crews that are shooting, there would be like one small area that would have 5 screens, and we kind of like looking at everything that's happening in reality TV. That's how we would like in the Osbournes, we'd be in the what's it called? The garage. I'm so from New York that I didn't even know the word garage because we don't even have them
Hey,
in New York.
listen, somebody was telling me from England, garage.
Oh, a
And I'm
garage.
like, what's a
Yeah.
garage? I was totally confused. He goes, no, where you park your car. I said,
Where
you
you put
mean
your
garage? He
carriage. You
goes,
put your
no.
carriage in the garage.
Yeah. And I was like, what are you talking about? He had me so lost. I had
That's
to
so
ask
funny.
Google.
That's so funny. I know, right? You move it at that speed. But yeah, so it's good times.
It is. So before we start the other website as well, um, one question before we move on to that, and then we go. So,
Sure.
what are some ways that you've worked to increase diversity and representation in media? And what do you have? What type of advice you have for others who want to do the same?
Oh yeah, cool. Well, that's a serious question. So thanks for that. Uh, you know, I was lucky to be at MTV maybe 3 or 4 years after maybe MTV Raps was created and on the air and deemed a success, and the culture in that building had changed. So by the time I got into MTV, I was surrounded by a representation of people that I was not aware of, even from my little island of Staten Island. But where I actually thought there were a lot, I thought there were a lot more Vinnies in New York, and it turns out there's like none. By the way, I'm like the only one, but it's so strange. I don't know how many Vinnies but there's not a lot of us in this area. So
Only in the movies.
yeah, right. Only in the movies. It's very true. So when I got to MTV, I learned from, the best of the best. The piece of diversity that mattered to me the most, that I knew I could impact, what was not just in the result of diverse decisions in the room, but the inclusive approach to get the right people in the room. I think that that's I think that that's where I look around. The people that I idolized were the people that were on TV at that moment. A lot of them we talked about already. They had sources, they had friends. I never tried to be the cast. It's so weird to say that. I never tried to be a casting expert. I never tried to be really good at casting. I never tried for casting to be my thing. What I did do was get assigned to find a host for a show and trust that I knew the right people who would take me there, and that I could keep the door open for those people for
But
other
it's also a gauge
opportunities.
of energy, right? So, I mean, how do you
Yeah,
even gauge the energy? Like, what
yeah,
wavelength are you looking for, if you will?
yeah. Well,
What
it's the
are
high
you?
low. It's the high low. All of it. For me, Also in 99, 98, I had the mentality of I'm going to work here forever. I don't even think I had like a Gmail address yet. Like that was right. Like we
What's
didn't.
Gmail? Yeah, back then you had to have an invite to Gmail. It was
Yeah,
exclusive.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was no idea. Yeah, yeah, I remember I was like Vinnie.p at mtv.com, and I thought that would just be my email
Yeah,
address forever.
I still
And
got my Hotmail.
yeah, do you? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm still Vinster19 at AOL.com or something
AOL.
like
Oh,
yeah.
jeez.
I kept that. I kept that. Well, in the music industry and in TV, we use that a lot to that and our Nextels. Like I look back on
Oh,
my contacts sometimes. It makes me laugh because I'm like, oh, I got that person's info. I got it, and I'm like, oh, T-Mobile.
wow.
I got their PIN number from their two-way.
Oh, too funny.
But it was learning the way to approach inclusivity as as a system, like I didn't do many things once and never again. I built on the system that I worked with. Once I gauged in energy and understood the input, I also had I had a growing platform. MTV, MTV2, MTV3, MTV.com,
Mm,
MTV
yeah.
Film. I mean, got a growing platform with many,
You're
many.
there on that ride, man. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
right. So I had places MTV Hits, MTV Desi. I was like, what do you want? Where got to put you? Pew pew pew. It's funny. That makes me laugh because then I thought,
MTV Underwater. Let's go.
yeah, right. Like I was supported by a growing brand that understood the value of story. And don't forget, MTV created a music video, and then MTV went and gave labels hundreds of thousands of dollars to offset the cost of those music videos. And because we used to be the only platform that played them. And
Yeah.
then YouTube and some like AOL music kind of stuff started happening, and MTV wasn't getting the world premieres. We actually had a bit.
And then on cable as well, you started getting more video request
That's
platforms.
it.
That had the unedited videos.
Oh yeah, that's the
So,
other
so
thing.
remember, yeah. So
Yes, I
people were doing
remember
that back
because
then.
I thought I was all like big wig, like like it don't stink. And then I would be like, wait, what is the song fully about? Like we don't have we have a different version back, Adam.
Oh, what are those curse words? My
Yeah,
gosh.
I'm just gonna sit this one out, guys. And so I have an aversion to I'm more of I have more of a musical mind than I can sometimes hear a song and sing it, but have no clue what it's actually about, but understand the music part, but not the words.
No, I
I was
get you. That's
shook. You know that song, if you like pina coladas, and
yeah.
I was shook when I found out what that song was about. Yeah,
What
no,
did the claim was about?
we'll leave that for by the way,
Oh, I
no,
think.
actually, the truth is it's all about a couple who's basically they're fed up with each other and they're looking to cheat on each other, and they create these profiles that are their ideal profiles, and then they find each other in the cheat
Uh,
profiles, and it said, "Do you like pina coladas? Do you like?"
oh
So
man,
that's what. And I
that's
was
one
like,
of those
"What?"
dirty lines.
I was like,
That's a
"That's like
pickup line. Would
it's
that
like."
work today?
Or the Shaggy song, "It Wasn't Me." I was like, wait, what is this song fully about? This is MTV got it funny.
Oh yeah. Yes, 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 yes. That one was definitely a flip. That was a great one.
When you hear
Uh,
kids singing that song, you're like, how did we get away with this?
yeah,
How does that
right. They
even
got the Kids Bop track.
yeah, right. Now that's so 2005, that. So for
Yeah,
me, it
crazy.
was, and I appreciate the question about diversity. It was about being inclusive. By the time the people were in the room and I was in the room that those people were in, it was too late. I had to make sure that the right options were constantly being vetted, constantly being filled, and on a large scale. And by the way, I was a data dude. Like I talked about my databases. I use my databases on. That's how I got hired by MTV for Wanna Be a VJ. So like organizing information and being able
Nice.
to like that was built. I was built to do that. When
It's
people
a
say,
skill, man. It's a
what did
crazy
I wrote
skill, dude.
SOPs. Like I wrote standard operating procedures for a giant network as a 20 something year old. And again, I didn't know
Yeah.
what I didn't know now. Like I didn't know then what I know now. And now, now
Now,
all the
now you do
voices
it for
creep in.
yourself, and you're your own brand right here. That's what's important. So you got
Yeah.
the I have a podcast, and you also have the other site that I was showing real quick want to take too much more of your time. So
This is
what's
awesome.
VPE.TV all about
Yeah,
right here?
VPE.tv is my home base. This is actually
Okay.
where I have my creator hub. And if you go on my creator hub, you'll see I have hundreds of pieces of information that I just share, step-by-step guide on how to get your podcast listed on IMDb. So if you're a
Oh,
podcast
what?
owner,
Wait! I could put my podcast on
yeah,
IMDb because
this
I
is
have an
big.
actor credit there.
This is big. Yeah. If you're on IMDb, it's even easier, because all you have to do is add your podcast as intellectual property, and then you attach yourself as the executive producer, the writer,
Say
the host,
word.
all of the same exact title that Spielberg and everyone else has. You know what I mean?
Homie, you just made me so happy. I'm gonna do this
So
immediately.
much. Wait, listen to the guests. All your guests get discoverability. So now you can put me on our episode when our episode airs, and people who are on my
Oh,
IMDb will see that I was on your podcast. It's a great form of discoverability. There is nothing like this step right now from podcast to IMDb. There is nothing that creates as many backlinks and link backs and energy that pushes
really?
back to your than this. Have you ever won any
Wonderful.
awards? You have a production company? Where
I
are you
won't. We
located?
won a one award.
That's big. Now what you do is you claim that award on IMDb, attach it to yourself, to your podcast, to your podcast production company, to your distribution. And what that allows you to do is you'll see it in your Google image search. You'll see it
Yeah,
in your image searches right away. Also, by the way, I can go on and on about that one.
that's wonderful.
Awards worthy of winning. You talked about it. You want to be an award-winning brand. You gotta apply. Some
Okay.
are free, some are paid, but I've got a strong list that are there. If you're looking to get paid as a creator and you want to be on one of those lists where brands go when they're looking for people that they don't know but they trust and they pay you to create
Mm,
content, those are called creator marketing platforms. And I have a
okay.
list right there. I think it's like over 50 by now of platform. I broke it down by industry so you can take a look and see and there what industry works. Um, it's just a chock full of information to make sure you are, clear set and on your way. And anything we talk about here, on this podcast is supported on that website.
Yeah, production and content creation, legal design and branding. I mean, this so you got a team,
They're my tools.
monetization.
To be
My
honest, I put them
gosh,
in a
look at
place
this,
where me and my team could share them.
dude.
And like, they're the ones that I actually use.
Creator grants and programs. Oh
Yeah,
my
that's a good
gosh,
one. Just so much, especially Pinterest. By the way, Pinterest is giving away so much money for creators. Pinterest
really?
TV, brand new. Don't sleep on Pinterest TV. It's already an amazing search platform for photos. Now that they've created Pinterest TV, which is long form, vertical, evergreen. So it's not doesn't go away in 24 hours or 48 hours. Clickable, shoppable,
Really?
immersible talent. So
I got
I
amazing traffic on my Pinterest. Amazing traffic.
Yeah. If you've been pinning even a little bit, you still get a tremendous, reach. I feel like on that. But if
Oh
you're
no,
if
no,
you're
dude,
at it,
my numbers are insane
yeah, it's
on
strong.
Pinterest.
It's
It's
strong
like,
as a
wow, okay,
podcaster. As a
yeah,
podcaster, you might think of uploading your, if you're creating long form reels on Instagram, things that are longer than shorts on YouTube. But if
yeah.
you're creating long form reels for Instagram or other vertical leaning content, TikTok, I hear is coming out with a podcast section, I guess they call it,
Let's go.
for
I could
podcasters.
put mine up there too. Let's go.
That's where that content can go to live. And then you could put like, click here for my free guide. Click it doesn't have to be paid just because someone clicks on it. So I would load it up with all your freebies so that people actually, take the leap and convert. All of the social media verification, all the ways that I know how to get verified, it's all there.
Nice.
It's all,
No
whether
longer
it's
on
an
Twitter. I mean, you just put it right. Twitter, $8 done.
yeah, yeah. But by the way, so even then, you want my hack for Twitter right now? Like
Yeah.
the one that's working for me is I paid $8 once. That was 3 months ago, and they still haven't taken away the blue check.
Oh,
So you
okay.
don't get the benefits of all the other stuff that comes along with Twitter Blue, but you still get the blue check after you stop paying the $8.
Hey.
If you got a couple of businesses that you're trying to get verified, you have a couple of accounts, you only got to pay $8 once and step back. Sooner or later, that's going to go away. But I know that it's more expensive to take information off the internet than it is to put it on. So I
Yes.
had an inkling that my blue check would stay well after I stopped paying, because someone has to either go in manually and remove that, or they would create a script. And it doesn't make sense for me to demerit me that experience when I think such a low amount of people have actually bought that
Yeah.
on. So really what Twitter wants is for me to have the blue check, so that when people click on it, it says this person got it because of Twitter Blue. That's free marketing for them. So I
Yeah.
believe that that's why I'm still verified. But $8 once, that's the hack right now. It works.
Okay. All
So,
right.
and of course, you know, if you're going to
I
get the
love this.
verification on Twitter, you don't change your profile for like a month before you apply, because it
Yeah.
takes a long time to get that cleared.
Oh yeah, definitely don't change stuff. That I learned the hard way as well, for sure.
Yeah.
But I love this. I mean, look at all these amazing tips, podcast strategy, TV.
I
I mean, I
appreciate
have
that.
a podcast. I mean, Vinny, you're doing it all.
We hang out, right? We hang out. We show up.
But it is what it is. I mean, and thank you for even putting out there and creating these hubs and providing this free information. Something I wish I knew about when I first started this. I wish I had someone like you when I first started. So it's wonderful to see that now I
It's all
found
about
you.
loops. It's all about loops. You know,
Man.
we first start this year. So now we first start together. Now I'm excited here. All about loops.
And so you still in media, so you can help us build and develop some content, huh?
Yeah, I'm passionate about that.
Hey, man, do I have a friend that has an idea?
I got a friend that has a platform.
All right, yo. So we have stuff. Yeah, we gotta definitely book a call. So folks, right there, you have ideas, talent development. I mean, he's there to help. Vinny is here to help you folks. So please make sure to visit that website right here. I've been showing it off. This one is vpetalent.com or vpe.tv. You can also go to ihaveapodcast.com. All right, you see again right there. Don't be scared. She ain't gonna do nothing to you. Finals is over.
By the way, I'll tell you this too, for anyone who's listening this deep. I was going to say this earlier, but this deep into the interview, if you go to ihaveapodcast.com/interview, that will take you to the form that I have my featured podcast form that I actually pull and create those articles from. So I use that as an opportunity, obviously, between us to support you and your podcast in the way that I know how to do that. But if people are out there and they're passionate about a podcast, whether they have one or they want to refer one, I'm happy to share that word of mouth. I'm happy to share that out there. Otherwise, let them go search for it.
There you go. Start
Yeah.
searching and start working. Vinny,
That's
thank you
it.
so much for your time. I
Yeah.
appreciate you hanging out with me, sharing and spilling all that knowledge, sharing your journey. You're amazing. Keep going, keep rocking. Can't wait to see what else you do. Keep blessing those people. And folks, the websites are below. Make sure to click away. Show the love and support. Everybody, hasta la próxima. Thank you so much. Bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the A.M.P podcast. We hope you've enjoyed listening to the interesting stories from our guests. Remember, success is a journey, not a destination. And every step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to your goal. Don't give up on your dreams and keep pushing forward. Until next time, thank you for tuning in and stay motivated.